I think if we are Democrats, we should support democratic countries, and especially countries that are under pressure from kind of authoritarian regimes, and they're trying to maintain their own democracy.
Hello and welcome to Perspectives with Neilo. I'm your host, Neilo Sullivan, and if this is your first time joining us on the podcast, our goal is to bring you news and views from around the world from an Irish perspective. Although Perspectives with Neilo is just over a year old, we already have quite a few episodes, and you can find all of them on our blog site at pwneilo.com or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to be added to our exclusive mailing list to receive advance notice and special updates, then please click on the subscribe link on our blog site and follow the instructions. In this episode, I talk with Father Sean O'Leary, who is originally from Togher in Cork City, but has been a missionary priest in Taiwan for the past 19 years. I visited him in his parish in Dongshih and spoke to him about living in Taiwan, the similarities with Ireland, and why he spoke out about Taoiseach Leo Varadkar's statement on Taiwan back in January. So, Father Sean, thank you very much for taking the time to talk. Justin, you're very welcome to the podcast.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, nice to meet you. Yeah, welcome to Taiwan.
Okay, thank you. Maybe you could introduce yourself first for our listeners.
Yeah, my name is Sean O'Leary, and I'm a member of the Spiritan Missionary Group. In Ireland, they're better known as the Holy Ghost Fathers. And I'm from Cork City, and Togher, a place called Togher in the south of the city. And I've been here in Taiwan. I came to Taiwan actually 27 years ago. And overall, since then, I've been in Taiwan for 19 years in two different parts. One in the north, a place called Hsinchu, and the other right where I am now in Taichung, which is in the central city here in Taiwan.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how did you end up living in central Taiwan?
Well, after I came here 27 years ago, I did 11 years in Hsinchu, and then I returned to Taiwan, or returned to Ireland to work in Dublin for 6 years with our congregation, and also in a parish in Clondalkin in Dean's Roth, St. Ronan's Dean's Roth, for 2 years. And then at that time, our congregation in Taiwan wanted to begin a new mission in a new diocese. And they wanted to begin this mission in Taichung, but we didn't have anybody at that time available and that knew Chinese. So at that time, I was also finishing up my work in Ireland. So the superior of Taiwan asked me if I would come back and move to and start a new mission here in Taichung. So that was 9 years ago. So I've been in Taichung now for the last 9 years, working in two parishes, in Holy and in Dongshih. And I also work in a prison ministry. I'm in charge of the prison ministry for the diocese, and do a little bit of work as well in halfway house for people living with AIDS.
And is there a big Catholic community here?
In Taiwan, no, we're not a big group. I think we're not maybe half of 1%, in the statistics. But there are also migrants from the Philippines and from Vietnam, and you'd have big numbers of Catholics among the migrants. So in a lot of the parishes in Taiwan, as well as the Chinese Mass, you'd have an English Mass and a Vietnamese Mass. So you could have three Masses in one parish. And normally the Vietnamese Mass and the English Mass, you'd have more faithful attending the service than the local Taiwanese, as the local Taiwanese are very few in number, really. Yeah.
So you've been here quite a long time now. You said about 19 years. You must like it to have stayed that long, I presume. What are the kind of things that have kind of kept you here?
I think really the people, really, even the local Catholic families here. We're small in number, but we're actually very, in terms of activities in the churches, they're very, I would say, dynamic. Like there's a lot of different prayer groups. There's even a prison ministry team of Catholics that work in prison ministry. There's outreach to the poor. So and then also the friendliness and the welcome of the local people. Not only the Catholics, but also the non-Catholics. We have a lot of I also teach English and we have free English kind of tuition, and a lot of people from the local area, a lot of the children would come, and we build up relationships with their families, and you can build very kind of deep friendships here in Taiwan. And so part of it is the people, part of it is also the needs of our group. That at the moment I'm also what they call the superior of the group. So I have a certain amount of years to do that. So I kind of feel the need of the group is that I'm needed here. So, and also the local church, there aren't many local Taiwanese priests. So there's kind of a shortage of priests to look after the Taiwanese churches. So taking everything together, and as you say, I'm kind of very used to life in Taiwan after 19 years, and just it's kind of a second home, really. Ireland also a very nice place to live. My family are back there, and I also worked in Ireland. It's also a very encouraging place for me as well to work and live. So Taiwan, Ireland, for me, both are good places to be. Yeah.
I know there's a sizable community, at least a few hundred maybe, of Irish in Taipei. They have the Taiwan Celts, they have Irish pubs and so on. Any Irish in the Taichung area?
No, there may be, but I'm not aware of any. Most of the Irish activities are centred around, as you said, in Taipei. They have their Gaelic teams there. 2 or 3 Irish pubs in Taipei, and then for kind of different events, there's a group, an Irish in Taiwan group on Facebook, I think, and they organise different activities. But I think it's mostly geared towards those Irish living in Taipei. So in Taichung, I'm not aware of. There may be, but I think if there are Irish in Taichung, not too many. Maybe you could count them on one finger, on one hand.
Recently, on May 20th, Taiwan had the inauguration of a new president, President Lai Ching-te. Over 500 foreign dignitaries from across 51 countries and regions attended. Unfortunately, Ireland wasn't one of them. Ireland didn't even send congratulations to Taiwan on the inauguration of the new president. Does it feel strange living in a country that Ireland doesn't recognise?
Yeah, well, I think the Irish policy about what they call the One China policy, they are aligned with the European policy that there is one China, and then that how different Taiwan and China interpret that one China is different. But I think that is basically they won't go against that, what they say, the One China policy. But that doesn't stop them from building cultural links, economic links, friendship links, like many countries, like as you said, in Europe, that have that One China policy, but they have been active in developing other links and economic links, trade offices with Taiwan, and they seem to be getting more and more. So the links with Taiwan and the European allies are becoming stronger and stronger. So I think, as a democracy, as a democratic country here in Asia, as what they call even a Chinese democracy, so to speak, it would be like, I think if we were Democrats, we should support democratic countries, and especially countries that are under pressure from, we would say, kind of authoritarian regimes, and they're trying to maintain their own democracy. As you said, given the Irish history of our own fight for independence, we are also an island state. Taiwan is an island state. We both have what we call bigger neighbours who wanted to kind of rule over Ireland, and like China wants to rule over Taiwan. So I think with the Irish, we should have a natural sympathy towards these people of Taiwan. After all, I mean, I think we have 24 million people. It's multi-party democracy. It's a vibrant democracy. All the human rights are respected here. So I think for Ireland just to ignore that kind of reality, I'm not sure why they would want to do that unless they're under pressure from China or something like that. But at the same time, Ireland is a sovereign country, and we should make our own foreign policy in terms of have a principled foreign policy. And we can, just like France and England and many other countries with their trade offices and developing very strong links with Taiwan, I think Ireland can also maybe follow that path and leave the political path to play out the way it will play out. And at the same time, just like what's happening with Ukraine and Russia, that we should stand on the side of freedom and democracy.
It seems so that Ireland are leaning the other way. They're standing on the side of the totalitarian regime. And back in January, the Chinese premier visited Ireland. After the visit, the Taoiseach Leo Varadkar said that Taiwan is an inalienable part of China. You wrote a letter to the Irish Times commenting on this statement. Can you tell me what you said in the letter, briefly, and why you said it?
Yeah, I think the reason I said it is because I believe that the Taiwan and China, the history have developed differently. And one is, as you said, along the one-party system, which is the Communist Party, one-party rule in China. But the other, Taiwan has developed along the road of democracy and multi-party democracy. And that has been going on. They've diverged different paths already since 1947. So to say that Taiwan is part of China, even when the Chinese Communist Party never ruled Taiwan, not even for one day, I'm just wondering what basis, what historical basis, the Taoiseach of a country, a democratic country, would say that an authoritarian country rules over a democratic country which has developed differently. And the basis of a democracy is government of the people, for the people, by the people. So what about the rights of the Taiwanese 24 million people to decide their own path? So if you look at the history of how Taiwan democracy has developed, especially since the lifting of martial law in 1987, that is the reality. And for me to say that it is a part of China, maybe 200 years ago, but even 200 years ago, it wasn't even part of China. Even the history of Taiwan, for me, there's no historical basis. There's no, and now there's also no political basis to say that Taiwan, as a multi-party democracy, with no political ties really to China in that sense, is part of China. So, if the Taoiseach of my country kind of says that Taiwan is part of China, then he needs to back it up. And so I was kind of asking him, really, give me the reasons, because for us, what are the real? I think he kind of just said it as a kind of a mouthpiece that Taiwan is part of China and that is our policy, but without really kind of taking into account the feelings of the people of Taiwan, the reality of the situation, and as a Democrat, then for me it's a kind of a bit. It was kind of contradictory as a Democrat to kind of make those claims without any kind of without backing it up. So really, I was just kind of the reason I think I wrote the letter was to maybe just to raise awareness of the different paths that Taiwan and China have travelled down, just like Ireland and England, as you said. Ireland is not part of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, and you would think Ireland would be more sensitive to these things, given our history, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I just think there's probably a lack of awareness of the political development and the relationship between Taiwan and China, particularly over the last, let's say, 60 years. Probably, I don't know, are Irish people very aware of that.
But it does kind of stick out, doesn't it? For Irish people here in Taiwan, that Ireland doesn't congratulate Taiwan after a successful democratic election. It doesn't congratulate Taiwan after successful presidential inaugurations. It doesn't send condolences or expressions of help after a severe earthquake. It refuses to reopen the trade office, as you said, refuses to put tax agreements in place between both countries. Why do you think this is? Can China have so much influence in Ireland or with the Irish government to make Ireland ignore its core values of freedom and democracy?
It's probably in terms of realpolitik, that each country will do what it sees it's in its own best interest. So if you're looking at in terms of the market of mainland China and the market of Taiwan, and in terms of maybe they're thinking of future trade agreements with China would be. Realistically speaking, much more important than any kind of agreements with Taiwan, which would be much smaller country. So I think maybe they're just it's kind of a narrow focus on economic development and opportunities in the future for trade agreements with China. I don't know. I mean, our politics supposed to be very principled, or is it more pragmatic, or which I suppose for us we would hope that it'd be more principled stand that you be guided by. But then I suppose it's a different the political sphere is something that it's a different kind of area.
This past week was a pretty busy week here in Taiwan news-wise. There were large protests in Taipei on Tuesday and Friday against congressional reform legislation being pushed through Parliament by the China-friendly opposition parties. I spoke to some protesters, and many of them feel that China is pulling the strings of the KMT and the TPP. And we also saw China and the PLA conducted 2 days of what they call punishment drills around the island as they continue to ratchet up the pressure. This was in response to Lai Ching-te's inauguration. How do you see all of this playing out for Taiwan if you look down the road in 5 years or 10 years? Where do you see it going?
Yeah, it's probably a power struggle going on between the opposition parties and the ruling government. Because now the opposition parties, in terms of legislators, have the majority. So I just think they're trying to flex their muscle. They're trying to keep kind of some kind of control over the government, or to try to block their agenda. So how will it play out? I think.
Do you think, by the way, those opposition parties are influenced or have closer connections with China?
Historically, yes. The Kuomintang, in particular, have much more. Their policy is more China friendly, say, and then they would see that being more open to China would also be good for Taiwan. I mean, that's what they would argue, that in terms of even economic links and tourist links. Because tourism is kind of suffering in Taiwan at the moment, ever since the Chinese stopped people from coming to Taiwan. So they would see that an openness to China is good for Taiwan, but whether that's true or not, they're definitely more pro-China. I don't feel myself they're in China's pockets. I think they can't afford to be, because the local Taiwanese people are very politically aware, and they wouldn't get away with it as such. But I think they are a kind of they would see, let's maintain the status quo politically, and let's develop economic and cultural links with China. I think that's their policy, and the DPP are more I would just say more suspicious of China, and they're kind of so which one will play out will be up to the people in Taiwan ultimately to decide. So how will it play out? I think it will play out in the democracy of Taiwan. I mean, let's see. I think the economy is probably the number one issue for the voters anyway, but also national sovereignty. They're the two big issues, and whichever party can strike a good balance between those two, they'll be the ones that will probably be in power going into the future. I think China, because now the new president has been sworn in, they don't like him. They see him as a kind of pro-Taiwanese independence. So I just think they were just kind of demonstrating their power and reminder, and just a kind of bully kind of tactics, really. Or now you're in power, you better watch what you say, kind of thing. So I just think it was just it'll probably, hopefully, I think it'll die down going forward.
If we look at Hong Kong for a minute, which I think probably gets a lot of attention from the people here in Taiwan, we saw that the Chinese government promised a one country, two systems approach there, yet when it came to reality, they imposed national security laws, which is far from a one country, two systems arrangement. I presume that has influenced people quite a lot in Taiwan in terms of their desire to be Taiwanese and not Chinese.
Yeah, I mean, what's happening in Taiwan is being watched very closely, particularly among the younger people here in Taiwan, and they definitely they see the Taiwanese sense of Taiwanese identity is growing stronger and stronger, and also the sense that Taiwan is a country with its own borders, with its own economy, with its own political system. They see themselves as Taiwanese more than Chinese, whereas some of the older generations would have a kind of a more friendly kind of even self-identity in terms of Chinese, culturally speaking at least. But no, there's definitely a growing Taiwanese identity, and the more the Chinese authorities are clamping down on Taiwan or Hong Kong people and their rights in Hong Kong, the stronger then the kind of Taiwanese, the sense of Taiwanese identity and the sense of the need to stand up for their own Taiwanese sovereignty, that becomes stronger and stronger. Yeah.
If China were to invade Taiwan and take it over and maybe impose their national security law here, do you think a lot of foreigners would stay? Would you stay?
Yeah, the sheep are here, so the shepherd can't run away. So if we're allowed to say, I won't be going anywhere. Yeah. So I think in terms of the church, we will continue to do what we can to serve the people, to serve the society, regardless of what happens in terms of if China does come in. The problem is it would be more difficult, I think, for us as a foreign priest to minister here in Taiwan, because it's not possible to do that in China. So if the laws about religious freedom or lack of freedom are imposed in Taiwan, then that would make it more difficult for a lot of the missionaries to stay here. But I won't be going anywhere. Yeah. The other depend. I don't think it's in Chinese interest to. I mean, I think they would like, if they came to Taiwan, they would also like Taiwan to be successful, because if it does become part of China, they will. There'll be more controls in terms of politically, but economically, I think they would probably try to keep the economic success story of Taiwan going. Yeah. That would be in their interest.
Well, you would have thought they would have felt the same about Hong Kong, but their I guess national security law and government overreach has changed that there too, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Staying with the church though for a minute, I mean, you spoke there about the church in China, and we read that the Chinese government tried to sinicize religion and reduce its influence, and there's been complaints about the creep of communist ideology into religious spaces, and maybe the desire for the Communist Party to push Xi Jinping thought to the front of people's awareness, rather than religion. What's your kind of view on that?
Yeah, well, basically, it seems that the one-party communist rule is about control and controlling all aspects of people's lives. So that also comes into the religious kind of sphere. So there is a kind of, from what we hear from different groups, the Protestant groups in China in recent years, also some of the underground Catholic churches, that there has been a more severe kind of clampdown on religious freedom in Taiwan or in China. So if
what do you think it says for the future of the church in China? Do you think they can continue to play a meaningful role in people's lives with this government overreach?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are negotiations between the Vatican and China, kind of very complicated about the ordination of bishops. In the Catholic Church, the Pope appoints bishops, but apparently the Communist Party want to also have a final say about who would be a bishop and that. So if they can sort out their kind of differences, the Catholic Church then would have to operate within a much more kind of controlled system. But probably what it would be a little bit like what happens in Vietnam. Vietnam is also a communist system, but the church there is kind of doing very well. But once they don't talk about politics, once they don't step outside the pastoral care of the Catholics and that, so it'll probably be a kind of a very the church could be allowed to exist and also even thrive among their people, and but once they don't talk about politics, once they don't overstep, they'll kind of be it'll be very defined the way the church can work in China, and what they can do and what they can't do. So there'll be a kind of a mutual kind of coexistence, and but the party having the kind of allowing the church to have a certain amount of freedom without having too much freedom, kind of thing.
You've obviously learned a lot about Taiwanese culture, and you're very fluent in Chinese and everything since you came here. Have you been teaching the local Taiwanese any Cork culture, any Irish culture in your years here? Yeah, Cork English.
Yeah, well, you have a few of the young people now going around speaking with a bit of a Cork accent. I've been teaching English here in Holy for about 8 years. So they're interested. They're interested. You kind of bring in a little bit of your own culture, maybe some Irish songs. Sometimes they're interested to learn. They're interested to go to Ireland. Some of my friends, they're wondering if I could organise a group, maybe in the future I can bring people and that. So it's kind of they know I'm from Ireland, and they kind of even our local next church down the road in Fung Yuen is called St. Patrick's. And there, the statue of St. Patrick's in St. Patrick's Church was bought by my parents. Yeah, about 5 years ago. We've got the priest there said, "Oh, could we get a statue of St. Patrick?" So we got one from Ireland. So you're welcome to go any Irish and go in Fung Yuen, and you can look for St. Patrick's Church, and the statue there is from Cork.
Okay. Anything we missed, Sean, that you'd like to say?
No, it's just that if anybody wanted to come to Taiwan to work for a couple of years, it's a very good country to come. It's very developed in terms of infrastructure. They also have job opportunities here, particularly in teaching English or different kind of computer companies. But it'd be a very good place to base yourself, because it's very easy to go from Taiwan to the other Asian countries, Hong Kong, Korea, Japan, the Philippines, Vietnam. So, and also in the cities, you also have young people who are very eager to practice their English. And also the people are so friendly and warm, as Neil has also experienced. So, Neil, you have experienced the friendliness of the people here. So you should think about if you wanted to have an experience. Taiwan is a good mixture of East and West. There's all the temples also in Taipei and around the island, and also the very well developed country in terms of Taipei 101, the high-speed railway, very beautiful mountain areas. So you can think about that. Welcome.
So, Father Sean, thank you very much for chatting with us. It was a real pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for your visit. Yeah, and for what you're doing with Taiwan. I know you're a great supporter of Taiwan and of Taiwanese development and democracy. And you're also working hard to raise the profile of the fragility, I suppose, of the Taiwan democracy, and also that as Democrats we should try to support not only the political democracy but also the people of Taiwan, who are very open to developing links with Ireland.
That's Father Sean O'Leary, who's a parish priest in the Diocese of Taichung in Taiwan. My sincere thanks to Father Sean for taking the time to chat with us and share his valuable insights on Perspectives with Neilo. We've added links to Father Sean's published letters in the Irish Times, as well as some additional material on the topics covered in this episode in the Dive Deeper section of our blog at pwneilo.com. And don't forget, if you'd like to be added to our exclusive mailing list to receive advance notice of episodes as well as special updates, then please click on the subscribe link on our blog site and follow the instructions there. But that's where we leave it for the moment. As always, thank you for listening. And from Taichung, Taiwan, Zaijian.